Recently graduating from UC Berkeley with a BA in social welfare, Robin has joined Runaway Girls as their in-house researcher, advocate, and trainer with a survivor's perspective and expertise. Her focus for the last 3 years has been on the commercial sexual exploitation of children, CSEC. Through her research, volunteer work, and brutal, honest, inspirational blogging, she also writes an analysis and opinion blog for the Chronicles of Social Change, which is a national platform for voices of the children welfare and youth service industry. Being a survivor of sexual exploitation and trauma as a child, as well as an adult, has given Robin a sense of deep obligation and commitment to aspiring change within communities and in the hearts of individuals where injustice has prevailed. Her volunteer work with Mercey, a nonprofit providing direct service to CSEC, gave her another level of empowerment and healing service as a mentor and outreach co-leader. Robin has found the strength to change her life and the courage to exhaust her resource after becoming a single mother, which literally saved her life. She has been dedicated to a path of healing and transformation through yoga, meditation, and faith. She has become a fierce and shining example of resilience for her 5-year-old daughter to emulate. Robin believes in the right to freedom of the human spirit. Her life's work is a testimony to that belief. So please, let's give a warm Mercey welcome to Robin Rivera.
Thank you. I didn't test this before. Okay. Good morning. I'm so honored to be here to celebrate. Is that better? Maybe I'll stand still. Maybe there's something in the air. But to be here to celebrate the V-Day, I have to be honest, the whole V-Day concept is new to me, but when Janine was explaining it to me, I was like, yes, I want to be a part of this, because not only am I a woman, but I'm a woman that gets to stand here in my greatness and to be empowered after living a life of being disempowered. And I don't believe my story is isolated. I'm not alone, I'm not unique. Some parts of it may sound traumatic and disturbing, but I know by far I'm not alone. And I'd like to invite everyone to just close their eyes for a minute, for a few breaths, just ground yourselves and get into this moment. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I want to ask you to invite yourself, your spirit, to remain open in your mind and in your heart, and willing to look at the similarities in our characteristics and not the differences, so that you might be able to be empowered by my story. Go ahead and gently open your eyes. Oh, so I grew up in a cute small town called Pleasanton. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's not far from here. It's like a suburban, middle to upper class town. And the church I grew up in was right across the street. My father's Mexican-American entrepreneur, was very successful in his business. My mom was a good church-going lady. But what would happen as we crossed the street from the church, after we would cross the street from the church, my home life would become like a living hell. And I think for some children, they might interpret their home life differently. For my brother, he wasn't as affected as I was, but we're also, have a different dynamic being male and female. I was a sensitive child. I had more needs that weren't being met, and that was exacerbated by my parents coming from very traumatic upbringings, and that trickling down into our home life with violence, mental illness. I watched my mom go through serious mental illness episodes where she was in psychosis. She was not there. And I just remember desperately wanting and needing a mother, at least a mother, and a father at best. And I didn't have that. And I remember this, from maybe age 5 years old and on, I had this deep, deep pain inside me. Horrific pain that I could not get out of me. When I would be upset, I would scream and cry and pound on the ground and try to get it out of me and cry in the closet to God what I did to deserve these parents and why I wasn't loved and why I wasn't good enough. When I looked in the mirror, I saw something that I would just cry over. I couldn't stand what I saw in the mirror. I didn't look like the other girls at school. I was very petite. I had thin hair, dry skin, freckles. Somebody called me alligator skin. I mean, kids can be mean. And I wasn't getting support at home. And by the time I was 11 years old, I had found alcohol, and that saved my life at that time because of this horror that was going on in my mind and in my heart that I had no tools to deal with. The alcohol let me have some kind of a release. And by the time I was 13, I had already experimented with some pot and been in trouble at school and was starting to act out. I like to think of it as maybe I wasn't such a troubled child, but I was more like a human rights activist fighting for my freedom because the things that were happening in my home were not okay. And my spirit knew that those things were not okay, and I was fighting, and I was letting them know that I wasn't okay, and I was getting beat back for that. And so when the school started noticing bruises on me, CPS got involved, and that was my first experience with social services, and they didn't really do much. Eventually, they ended up letting me leave my parents' home to go live with somebody who was not fit to be a parent, who let older boys come in and out of the house, allowed us to drink alcohol and smoke weed. And I was continuously being exposed to negative environments. And by the time I was 14, I had been to my first rehab, and sometimes these institutions that children are put in are not the best places for them because then they're exposed to worse drugs, older people who are sexually active, they're being influenced. So that's what happened to me. I got out of that rehab and I was still a virgin and I hadn't done hard drugs yet. But as soon as I got out, one of the boys that I had met in there, who was there on a court order, he took me under his wing and he exploited me to his friends. They would drive me out to Tracy and they would give me beer and turn off all the lights and then tell me they wouldn't drive me home unless I slept with all of them. And I remember feeling really scared and really heartbroken because I really liked this boy. Like I had first feelings for somebody, and I couldn't imagine why they would put me in that position, why they would let their friends have me in that way. And honestly, I don't remember what that was like exactly because my body has protected myself from things like that. And that was just the first of many traumas. After that, I was drugged and gang raped at a party when I was 15 years old. And at that point, I had already decided I don't have a family. I cannot trust my family, but now I can't trust my friends because they let this happen to me. And I dropped out of school. I had police and detective patrolling my house because people were looking for me with bats, the girlfriends of these people involved. And it was a really scary time in my life, and I wanted nothing more but to die. And I found freedom in that because if I didn't care if I lived or died, I could do whatever I wanted. I was invincible. While I was a runaway after that rape incident, my missing persons report turned into an FBI case because everybody thought I was dead. They thought I OD'd because I was living with some drug dealers who were older men who were trafficking me instead of on the street within their own home. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the commercial sexual exploitation of children. We call it CSEC, but the first word commercial can be defined as the exchange of anything worth value. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for money. It can be for food, shelter, protection, or selling dreams. A lot of the women that I work with and young girls, they've been sold dreams about modeling and making it into music videos or, I'll take care of you. And coming from a background of not having your basic human needs met by your family, even in a suburban home, yeah, that's gonna sound attractive when somebody's offering you to meet those basic needs. And luckily for me, I was rescued by the BART police, and I was immediately taken to a psych ward, and from there I was shipped off to a residential facility, specialty school in Mexico, where I lived for 13 months on lockdown. I don't necessarily promote that type of intervention. There's better modalities out there now, and it's shut down for child abuse, but it did save my life by taking me out of my environment. And I like to mention that I'm very lucky in the way that I was rescued, and I think it might have to do because I came from a town of privilege and I look white. I am half Mexican, but I look white. and I sound white, and my parents had access to resources. So I feel very lucky and fortunate that that happened for me, that the police didn't want to keep criminalizing me like they do to some of my sisters that I see it happening to, but they put me in a psych ward. And although it wasn't the best situation to be institutionalized most of my adolescence, because I missed out on normal things like socialization and school, but it did save my life. And I always wonder, if I were Black or I grew up in a lower income area, if my parents didn't speak English, would I still have this story that I have today? So I feel it's my obligation to tell my story for those people who don't have that opportunity yet. And hoping that the factors along the way that have given me resiliency can be instilled into young women like you, people who are at risk, or into people who are already been victimized and we want to turn them into survivors. I wish my story ended there and it was a happy triumph, but that was just the beginning. Those seeds were planted along that way. I heard something about community college. No one ever talked to me about college before. I was told I had learning disabilities, I couldn't read very well, and I was nothing but a whore. And I believed that. When I went to that school in Mexico, I learned about community college. Wasn't really gung-ho about it, but that seed was planted. I learned about my worth and my value. I learned about accountability for my actions. What was my part in this? Yeah, I didn't deserve to be raped, to be beat, to be abandoned by people that were supposed to protect me, but I do have a part in what I choose to believe about that and what actions I'm gonna take. I didn't choose the right actions right away, but those seeds were planted. I got out of that school in Mexico and I lived on my own since I was 17 years old. And can you imagine, okay, yeah, you put this child through this quick fix, well, actually it wasn't that quick, it was 13 months, but you put them through an institution to try to fix them, you give them therapy, you give them medication, and then you set them free into the world, and you expect them to have life skills and be prepared to be an adult, and I didn't. I was not ready to be an adult, but I had to grow up really fast. And after a series of events and DUIs and car crashes and bills and just trying to make ends meet, I had a girlfriend introduce me to the commercial sex industry for adults. And I thought that was gonna be my ticket out. I thought that was gonna be my way to show the men in my life, my dad, the people who thought that I couldn't become anything or take care of myself, I thought this was gonna be my way out. And also, it was a way for me to take my seemingly power back. Because now I can say when and where these atrocious things are gonna happen, and I'm gonna be in charge of it, and I'm gonna pretend and glorify it. And I live in a culture that glorifies it, so all these puzzle pieces came together and made that a really perfect storm for me to embark on that journey. And I just continued a life of serious self-destruction. I was very depressed. I had a lot of there was fun times intermittent in there. There were fun times and friendships and bonds that were made. But for the most part, if you compare it to the amount of times that I had to slit my wrist, or that I had to go to the hospital, or that I was laying on a hotel floor, police in the back of a police car, though it wasn't worth it. Doesn't outweigh. I ran away to LA after some bad stuff happened, and I fell into further forms of exploitation through the adult movie industry, which is basically like a legal prostitution ring, where they can charge a lot more money for it and get away with it. I was dying inside. I wanted to change so bad. I always knew there was this deeper thing inside me that was meant for something great. I could feel it, and I know it every morning that I woke up after doing drugs all night and drinking and making money and being exploited or whatever horrible thing had happened. I knew there was something I was meant to be, and this wasn't it. But I didn't have the power to get over this hump. I didn't have the power to get clean and sober. I didn't have the power to feel worth it long enough to stick out the hard times. I swear, I really wanted it. Eventually, I was being exploited by some rappers that were trying to exploit me to royalty in Africa. And that sounds pretty crazy and unbelievable, but that's my story. And my instinct said, get the heck out of there. I ran away barefoot from a mansion in Beverly Hills. And I sought refuge in a hotel, and I came back up to the Bay Area, and I wanted to change my life. I checked myself into a psych ward because I was seriously depressed. When I got out, I found out I was pregnant. Ooh, I didn't expect that to, I never expect that to choke me up. What is this? And that was the turning point in my journey. Ooh. I feel very fortunate for that because that's not true for everybody. A child doesn't change everybody, but for me it did. I forgot to mention that during one period of time when I was like 21, I had tried to stop doing stripping and letting myself be exploited, and I did some volunteer work in New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina, and it was through this church thing. And I had this spiritual experience where this woman who supposedly had the gift of prophecy, I don't know how many of you believe in that, I didn't at the time, she stopped her whole sermon to come over and pray at my feet. Of all the people in the room, she wanted to pray at my feet, and I was really embarrassed. But she looked up at me after her prayer with tears in her eyes, and she told me, God wants me to tell you that you're going to be a really great mother one day. And that pierced my heart, and I knew she was telling me the truth, and I couldn't explain it. And so when I came back, escaping LA, leaving all my belongings, almost being exploited for, buco dollars and possibly losing my life, when I looked at that pregnancy strip and it said that I was pregnant, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was meant to happen and this was going to change my life and that I could do it. And for some reason, that love for that child gave me the power to do things that I never imagined I could do. Never. And I tried. I really, really, really tried. What ended up happening is I just decided, you know what, I'm going to let her father, I knew who the father was. I was pretty sure who the father was, and it was this man who I had dated and was trying to help me get out of that life. And he ended up turning his back on me and telling me I was nothing but a whore, and that if I had that baby, she would come out retarded, and I wouldn't be able to help her with her homework if she wasn't retarded, and that he would try to take her away from me. And thank God for those words, because that made me decide in myself that I would never give anybody a reason to talk to me that way again, and I will never let someone talk to me that way again. So I did whatever it took. Whatever it was going to take to heal and become a woman that I needed to be for this child, as to not drag her through the horror that I had been through my whole life, I was going to do it. Every day I walked in circles and I prayed. I prayed for God to mold me into the woman that He would have me be, and to show me what to do. And I sought out all resources. I went to pregnancy clinics. I tried to get counseling, which I wasn't successful at. It's really hard if you're not on welfare yet. And I started working 7 days a week, cutting hair and working at a yoga studio, because I thought, I don't want to get fat. Let me join a yoga studio, but I can't afford it, so I'll just work there. So it ended up being really magical for me, because there's something about movement that heals trauma, because we store our trauma in our body. So when you're moving your body and you're building a new relationship with it, you get to release that stuff. And I was having immense healing that I had needed my whole life. It also connected me to back to a higher power. And then when she turned 1 year old, I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? Now I have to be a worker, and I don't have any life skills. I can cut hair, but I really don't like it. I'm not that good at it. So I found out from someone at the yoga studio that if you're on welfare, they can help you go to college. And so that's when I used my street life survival skills to really master the college system. And I ended up, it's really funny, I ended up making a lot of money off of scholarships. But I ended up enrolling in junior college, and I believe that college is like a really magical place for people trying to change their life, and for women. And my story can also give you all insight on how to really prepare yourself to get paid for. But in my situation, I went through the welfare system, and they helped pay for books, but most importantly, they had counseling for me. And when I walked into their office to sign up, I was terrified. I had nothing to be proud of. I knew that I had reading disabilities and disorders, But I was like, it's all or nothing. Like, I gotta try this like it's a job. And the woman told me, just imagine yourself walking across that stage and having your little daughter in the audience. And for me, that vision was so powerful because I had nothing to be proud of. I had nothing. To this daughter and to this world, I was chewed up and spit out. And to think that I could do something that's deserving of walking across a stage in like one of those gowns. I never had a graduation, by the way, from high school because I was in Mexico. I wanted that. I wanted that so bad. And she said it was going to be hard, but that I could do it, and I believed her. And luckily for me, each teacher along the way planted a seed that I needed for the next step. My first teacher told me, anybody can be a straight A student, you just might have to do the work 3 times as hard as the other person, but you can do it. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds like a challenge, okay. I sat in the front row because I was afraid I was gonna turn red when I had to ask all the stupid questions. And that really served me, sitting in the front, because the teacher got to know me. And I learned about the civil rights movement, which I never knew about. I learned how to vote. I was crying about the civil rights movement, actually, because I had no idea that women went through that up until that point. And it just ended up being a really magical experience. And I had, I thought, monkey see, monkey do. Where are the smart kids? Let me do what they do, because I don't know what I'm doing. And I did that. I joined the honor societies, and I got officer positions. And those people and those advisors taught me the formula for winning scholarships. And so I just did what they said. You have to volunteer, you have to get an officer position, be involved in something, be about something, and tell your story. You have to be careful telling your story if you have a story like mine. But to tell your story, it will be a powerful asset if you know how to use it. So I did that, and I started getting a lot of attention, and I was being asked to speak, and I was having newspaper articles written about me, and I won like 7 scholarships for my advocacy for the welfare program. And then I got accepted into UC Berkeley on a full ride, and I wanted nothing more but to go back to my old life because I was so terrified and felt so undeserving. And if these people think I'm so great, how am I going to keep up with this? How am I going to keep making people proud? And all I want to do is prove that I could be a mother and not have my child taken away from me, and now people are putting me on this pedestal and I don't know what to do. And that's the journey. For people who have been through trauma, it's going to go up and down, and every time something's good, you're going to feel undeserving and scared and want to throw it all away. But I've learned from my experience, and because the rock of my child being there, that if you just hang on to that moment that you feel like giving up, the miracle explodes right after. So I got into UC Berkeley, and I won a scholarship to do research, and I did my research on commercially sexually exploited children in residential facilities. I was really interested in facilities because I was locked up so much, and I know how much it sucks. So I did my research on that, and I got a bunch of money. I ended up winning $55,000 to $75,000 a year, and that was unheard of. Even my scholarship advisor people that I had won one big one through, and their job is to help other people get scholarships. They're like, that is amazing. And for me, I feel like it's a level of action, steadfast action. It's a level of purpose, but I think a lot of it is just dumb luck, like being blessed or something. So I really feel like that's one of my callings, is to show other survivors and people how to navigate that system, because the money's out there, and it's really empowering to have people believe in you enough to give you that scholarship and to move forward with that. Fast forward, my daughter is 5 now, and she's an amazing little Buddha curly-haired child. She rocks my world. She reminds me to slow down and that everything's going to be okay, and that she just told me yesterday, she's like, if you need to give what you want to get, but you might not get exactly what you give back, but if you give love, you always get love back. And I was like, yes, yes. Yeah. So I graduated last May, and I got really scared again because I still have this self-doubt that I can't do it, or no one's gonna like me, and what am I gonna do? And I hooked up with Carissa Phelps. I'm not sure if all of you have heard of her, but she's a survivor also of being exploited when she was 12 years old. And she runs an organization called Runaway Girl. And I actually have one of my survivor sisters, Chantel Montoya, here to support me. And that's how we roll. We bring our sisters with us to support us on this journey. And we try to provide employment and career opportunities for each other. And that really, Carissa really, she just put the ball in my field and gave me a platform to step into my greatness and own it. I mean, this woman makes me own it. She'll give me 24 hours to prepare an anti-demand tactics to combat prostitution for sheriffs. In like 24 hours, I'm like, okay, this is like professional school boot camp. And I deliver, and then I'm like, yes, you know, this is the magic. Yeah, so I'm just, you know, where I'm at right now is I blog and I write, and I'm just really trying to find my place in the world. When you're a runaway and you have experienced the things that I know so well, the darkness that the world has to offer, is really hard to navigate. And it's really hard to be a mom because you want nothing more but to give your child the best. You don't want to repeat the cycles of abuse, but that's what comes up. That's what's triggered. And you feel that darkness rise inside you, and you have to believe in yourself and stay steadfast. It's a full-time job. I wanted to say that now it's more about, I think, the resiliency of the human spirit. And I've been able to somehow, through the love for this child, tap into this power. There is this great, extreme, out of this world power that we all have inside of us. And you hear that, and it sounds beautiful, but until you experience that, and you see that, and you see magical checks come in the mail when you are struggling and there's nothing left, and you just see one thing add up to another thing, and people put out their helping hands, and because you're intending on to set out this path to do good work, it just is really incredible and overwhelming. I mean, sometimes I fall to my knees in my kitchen in awe. I was actually a little bit teary this morning thinking about this opportunity to come speak to you, because all I wanted was to not have my baby taken away from me. And and I did so much more than that. And I know that other people can do that too. And you all are young women, and you have so much ahead of you. And I think what I would be calling you to do is to be authentic and to be willing to be vulnerable and to be brave. Because when you be vulnerable, it gives everybody else permission to be vulnerable and brave in their life. And when they heal, you heal. When you heal, they heal. And that's just how it works. And so yeah, I had a couple other things to say, but I feel like that's a good time to stop for questions and answers. Thank you. I wish I would have walked around more. Anyone have any questions? Are you going to have them line up? Look.
I'm Sunny.
Hi, Sunny.
I'm a sophomore. And what organization are you in? Like, are you an activist in like feminism and like rights? Sorry, I'm not very. Yeah.
I would like to consider myself an activist. I'm a little bit on the fence about the feminism thing because I just took a really gnarly bad class at UC Berkeley about feminism, and it promoted feminist porn. So it's touchy. But as far as organizations I'm involved with, there's one in Oakland that I'm really gung-ho about called Mercey. It's Missey. motivating, inspiring, serving, and supporting sexually exploited youth. And that organization goes to events and things like that. But also I'm here through an organization called Runaway Girl, which provides training for counties on how to respond to CSEC and giving survivors a voice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did I scare you guys? Or women, I'm not supposed to say girls. It's the whole standing up thing. No one wants to stand up.
Hi, I'm Nora, and I'm a sophomore. As a survivor, what would you tell survivors to look forward to?
Oh, that's such a great question. This is the work I do, and I do it because I want them to know that their story not only is not the thing to be ashamed of, but it's actually their greatest gift and ally. And that we are so much more than the story. But what to look forward to is everything you dreamed about when you were a little girl. I think we can all go back to that 3 or 4-year-old child picture, and where there was nothing in the world tainting us or nothing impossible. And I think that that's what we're really trying to get back to, is to just live from that childlike place, and that is possible. Is this a question?
Oh, Miss Eloise!
Hi, this is Tanya Alavis. Do you still have contact with your father, or is he a part of your life at all at this time?
Well, that's a good question. I did kind of breeze over that because it didn't seem important at the time. When a really beautiful thing happened with my family, it's been a long road, a hard road. My parents are still together, but through a lot of attention being put on me and in these different institutions, they've had to take a look at themselves. And they were both brutally traumatized when they were children, incest and a lot of alcoholism and beatings and stuff like that, and also being a first-generation Mexican. So there's been a lot of healing around that, but it's also very painful for me because they'll never be the parents that I want so bad. And the only way that I get to heal that is to be that parent for my daughter and future children. But I do love my parents a lot, and the pain eases. I actually get along better with my dad than my mother because he's so funny, and he has kind of some cool attributes. He used to do karate 5th degree, and they're really great grandparents. For some reason, they're getting to make up for that baloney period by really showing up and supporting me, because I've been a single mom for the last 5 years, and you better believe that they will be there when I need them. Yeah. And they know I'm going to write a book one day. They're prepared. They're like, when Mom cried after this newspaper article got written, and I tried really hard. I fought for them to not sound so bad. But my dad's like, don't worry, it's going to pay for us when we're old. And, Yay!
I don't know if this is too personal, but you spoke about how your daughter's father threatened to take her away.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in her life? Does he still?
Yeah, it's a really sad thing. Well, right before I was about to give birth, when I was found out about welfare, they asked for the father's information, so I contacted him, and he wanted, at that point, he's like, oh, this is real now. He wanted to be there when she was born, and I was thinking, no way, this thing that I've worked so hard, that I've been gut-wrenching and going through post-traumatic stress syndrome and doing everything to fight for this child, I'm not going to share this moment with my body naked in this magical moment with you. Sorry, but he did try to be a part of her life. he was seeing her every 4 months, and they actually built a relationship right away. You could tell that they knew that they were father and daughter, and she loves him, she really does, but she's starting to get to the age where she's realizing that he's kind of a loser. And he has a new wife and a new baby, and he's not able to support them, so he's been in the back burner. So right now it's kind of a sad time because he's really kind of starting to disappear. But a really funny and good thing about that is because he said I was so stupid and I was all this stuff. Well, I took chemistry in the summer, and everyone else like bombed it, and I got 107%. And I called him just to tell him, like, oh, by the way, you know.
I just want to ask you, what's your daughter's name?
Her name's Isabella. We call her Izzy. She's got really crazy, kinky, like golden hair. We don't know where it came from. Oh, she's half Armenian, so she kind of looks a little exotic.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm also a senior. My question for you was it really hard for you to like forgive your parents for like your childhood and stuff, especially because it was traumatic, or like maybe you didn't get set up like your life basically?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the first like big chunk of healing. Yeah, like even like, you know, so many years into trying to forgive and work and do all this spiritual stuff, I was really angry, really angry, and feel really betrayed. And times would come up where in conversation, they would deny things about the past, and it would just rip it right back open. And it would throw salad bowls and stuff. It was so painful. Now it's not as painful at this time, like the last couple of years, because I've just been so heartbroken. And they actually kind of like relapsed in their crazy behavior, and I saw that they're still capable of some weird, manipulative, not safe things. As far, not with my daughter, but as far as like in communication with me and my respect of my boundaries in my life. So I've kind of had this new revelation the last couple of years, like, okay, I can love them and not expect anything from them. And that's really where the healing has to happen, is just to not expect anything. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dia and I'm a freshman. I wanted to know, do you still talk to your brother at all?
Yeah, I actually have 2 brothers. One's a half brother, he's much older, but my little brother, he is like my rock. He's like one of my biggest cheerleaders, and anytime I would feel like giving up, or that, you know, or be jealous that all these other girls my age are getting to go out to the club and all that stuff, he would be right there with me like, you are destined for greatness. It's the people who have been down so low who get to go up so high, and just like really breathe life back into me. So yeah, he's a really good uncle.
Hi, I'm Nikki, I'm a senior. I just want to say that you, in like certain ways, you remind me a bit of my mom, because she's like Latina and she's a single mom. Your strength kind of reminds me of that. You said that like to this day you still get kind of like, you don't like know how to act about the things that you get, or like you don't know how to like deserve that or something. Like, is there something you tell yourself that, or like what do you tell yourself to like get yourself back up?
To get back up? Oh man, I mean, there are so many things. I'm constantly learning and practicing tools to help myself, because the problem is in the mind, you know. Sometimes if it's really bad, I have to call a friend to pull me out, to like stop the spiral. Sometimes it's putting Post-it notes, like right now I have Post-it notes on my front door that say, I believe in abundance, I deserve this, only love is real, like just little things, and I don't let myself get too stuck in the negative self-talk. Even if I don't believe it, I tell myself, I am meant for this, I deserve this. Like even coming here today, my boss was supposed to be with me, and some situations occurred that made it her not able to be here, and I could feel undeserving to be here. I could feel unequipped or ill-equipped, but I have to believe that I'm the one who asked to show up today, and I'm the one that shows up. So it's meant. I believe in everything being meant to be. So I just try to like lean back on that and just have to believe in yourself. Because if you don't, who the heck else is going to?
Hi, I'm Ms. Alvarez, I'm a Spanish teacher here. I was wondering what your plan is, if you plan to tell your daughter about your experiences from your child.
You know, I already kind of do on a mild level. I do plan to tell her, because I believe in transparency. I know she's young for a lot of that stuff. I believe in transparency, and I want her to have my back, and I want her to be ready and to be a warrior like her mama. So when people read my book or know about me or see me on the internet or something, that she can stand up for herself and for me and for women. A way that example of how I've had to bring some stuff up to her is for my relationship with my mom. Sometimes I am triggered and I'm not very polite with her because it's years of dysfunction, and it's just really hard for me. I'm around them too long. And I don't want my daughter to think that that's normal or that that's the ideal relationship, so I always do damage control, and I take her aside, and I have had conversations with her where I explained how my mommy wasn't really there for me the way that I needed her when I was little, didn't give me lots of hugs and stuff like that, and so we're having a hard time forgiving each other. And so, I mean, I feel like she's kind of advanced for her age, so I feel like that's digestible for her. But yeah, I'm going to try to ease her into it, but I definitely plan for her to know everything.
Hi Robin, my name is Kevin Pease and I teach in the Religious Studies department here. Religious Studies, yes. And I just wanted to say that I have a very close relationship with my mother, and from hearing your story, I just want to tell you that I think that you're an absolutely wonderful mother, and I'm so glad that your daughter has you. And then I would just like, on behalf of the girls, we teach in the Religious Studies department. Our number one teaching is that God is love. And I heard you speak of a higher power and how you prayed and walked around in those circles, and I was wondering, in our contemporary society and culture, sometimes it's really difficult for women, especially, to relate to God, to relate to a higher power based on ancient scriptures and teachings, and I was just wondering if you had anything to say to the girls about what that higher power meant for you or your relationship to God.
Oh, thank you for that question. I want to cry. You know, I have my own ideas about, I grew up Christian, I believed in Jesus, all this stuff, and I still believe in Jesus, and I still love Jesus. But I exactly what you said, I have a hard time with the scriptures and the stories and the mythology and, you know, hearing yoga philosophy and things like that, and then also feeling like I didn't belong in the church and feeling different. And but that being said, I also pray that God will reveal the truth to me, and I know that it will fully come. But as far as my relationship with God, oh my gosh, what it means to me is, like, if somebody tells me they don't believe in God, okay, that's fine, but there have been so many overwhelming coincidences in my life that you cannot explain. And I call it magic. I mean, maybe that's not the right church term, but to me it's magic. And it comes like a slap in the face. Not a mean slap, but like a really huge wake-up call, really huge realization. And I know that my God has never abandoned me. And I forgot to mention, when I was like 4 years old, I asked God into my heart, and I feel like that might have been one of the things that protected me all that time. But I pray and I meditate every morning, and I feel like that's a really huge aspect to my recovery and for the these awesome opportunities to happen in my life because I'm connecting to that power source. And I don't know if it's outside or it's inside, but it's happening and it's real. And the only way I know it's real is because I'm alive and I see miracles every day. And I don't know if everybody sees, I feel like they happen to everybody, but maybe our eyes just aren't open. But I'm so desperate to heal and so desperate to be alive and to live that I see them. And it's actually kind of freaky.
Thank you, Robin.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a senior. I'm sorry if this is too personal for you because
Nothing's too personal for
okay. I saw you walk up on stage, and I was wondering what your tattoo meant.
Which tattoo? Well, the one on my ankle. And mostly on my back. This one actually, okay. I was dating this boy, and he was practicing tattooing, and this just happened to be on the transfer paper already, so I was like, go ahead, practice. But now it means something different to me because it's a bumblebee, and so I just really, it's corny, but the only way I can make it better is to think like, just be.
Hi, my name is Mercey, and I'm a freshman. My question for you is, if you were to have all the people in front of you right now that doubted you and say you wouldn't be anything in the future, what would you say to them?
Wait, what people?
Because you said like there's like people like that doubted you a lot.
Oh yeah. You don't want to know. After I graduated UC Berkeley, and maybe this is not the best role model example, but my friends, we went out to a really expensive French dinner. It's like, you have to be on the list 2 months ahead. It's in Berkeley, Chez Panisse or something like that. And it's like $120, and they took pictures of me with both my middle fingers up for those people.
Hello?